All right, welcome into a live edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. Of course, is an instant reaction to the Patriots' loss to the Chiefs on Sunday at Gillette Stadium. Of course, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up today. Matt, it wasn't always pretty, but the Patriots kind of competed. I guess really only in the first half, but they kind of competed and made it close. It was at least a semi-entertaining Patriots game.
Yeah, it was kind of, I think, what you would expect. When they were reasonably healthy to start the game, it was competitive and it was close, and the Patriots had the lead for a stretch, and then once the wheels fell off, it got back to the Patriots we've kind of known all year long. But defense was good enough and resilient in there and gave you a chance to win it. And we knew the offense probably wasn't going to be good enough unless the defense pushed to some crazy degree. And credit, I thought the Chiefs were really good in the red zone today in a way that they haven't necessarily been this season. I think Andy Reid brought out some stuff to cash in some of those scoring opportunities because they knew they'd need the fancy stuff to score against this defense, and it worked, and the Patriots weren't ready for it. And then it all
that was awesome.
And who had Jerick McKinnon first passing touchdown of the game? If you had that as a prop, you win.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think it all kind of swung in the middle eight, which is where the Patriots have struggled this year. You forced a fumble, it doesn't count. We can talk about the officiating. That's not that didn't determine the outcome, but not good. But the Chiefs kick, I think, a field goal on that drive, and then
I think you're right. Yeah,
and they get the touchdown drive coming out of the half, and then you immediately get the pick, and that's all right. You had a chance and you blew it. But even having a chance in this one through 30 minutes, I think you feel good about at least some of the pieces on the team.
Right. So, by the way, sorry we're a little bit late. We got some technical difficulties, and so we got started a little bit late. But look, I mean, the hard thing for me is that the defense, and oh man, mom says it if they had a middle of the pack offense, and we talked about this before the season, we projected them to win 10 or 11 games, and we did that because we thought if you get the offense to number 15 in the league, you'd be a playoff team, right? I mean, they would be a playoff team if they were number 15 offense in the league. And you saw what Bailey Zappe did last week, right? Now he only played well in the first half, but it was enough. I played well in the first half again this week. It was not enough, right? And so, I mean, that pass, my God, if it wasn't for the Mac Jones interception in Germany, that'd be in the running for the worst pass of the season. I mean, that's just I don't know what you're doing. What are you doing?
Yeah. And there's something really funny in here too about the fact that Bailey Zappe gets bailed out by his wide receivers in a way that Mac Jones never does either.
Right.
That jump ball to Devontae Parker, that was that was no, we have T. Higgins at home. That's what that play was.
Yep.
And it was just the worst version of that play, but it was also just like he just wouldn't do that for Mac Jones. That doesn't happen. And even that fourth down touchdown pass to Hunter Henry, the throw kind of missed. There was just a big enough window that you could miss and still get it in there, and Henry made a nice adjustment to it.
Yeah, I thought that was bad, and I guess I got to look at it again. I thought Willie Gay made a bad play. I thought he stopped and jumped instead of continuing to run. I thought he had an opportunity to either pick it off or at least knock it away, and he just misplayed it, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that's what I thought.
No, I agree with that. And I think with Zappe, he's a good enough quarterback that for a drive or two drives or three drives or maybe four drives,
right?
You're not going to see the bad plays, and the mistakes will be close enough that you can work with it.
Right.
But the rest of it is just not. It's not, NFL starting caliber material, and I think we knew that. And it's Zappe's out there trying his hardest and he's working, and I think we've seen improvements from him, but he really does not have the accuracy that it takes, and maybe the decision making gets there with more experience, but it just isn't there right now.
Look, I think you've seen, and I have seen enough from him to think that he's deserved the spot as the backup quarterback for the Patriots next year. That's what I believe. I think he's earned that spot, but he's certainly not a starting quarterback in the NFL league. And so, you know what I mean? In the NFL league, in the league.
I'd say he's at least earned like to be in the competition for the backup spot too.
Right.
Because the other thing is, I think,
here.
I guess and you look at where the Patriots are, and if we assume that they're going to have a top 3 pick here, you look at the quarterback situation. There's no way they're coming out of this draft with a quarterback, and they're coming out of this first round with a quarterback. If the next 3 games goes the way we expect it to, then in some ways the draft starts at pick like 35 for the Patriots. There's just no way they're not going to take a quarterback with how the quarterback situation looks if one of these guys is there. There's just no way that happens. And if that's the case, then it might be, all right, we're going to bring in a veteran because we want a mentor for the quarterback. And if that's the way you want to go, then Zappe might not stick around. But in that case, you can ship him off, and I don't know, you probably get like a 6th round pick back for him or something. It's not going to be something crazy, but some team will send you something, or you get a pick swap out of it. Like
again,
you send
he's a backup quarterback, right? He's a backup quarterback. It's one of those situations where, like, to have a guy that can step in and play okay for short periods of time. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's kind of a similar guy. Jacoby Brissett is a better quarterback, but like,
who played well today for Washington.
Well today. But again, it's one of those things where, like, he steps in as the backup and plays well. If he starts the game, does he play that well when he's in there? Probably not, right? But like, he can step in and play well. And so that's the question, I think, is can Zappe be that type of guy? And I think he can be. It's just, again, we're talking about a backup. You know what I mean? So, it is what it is. And ultimately, I think what's happened is that Mac Jones, the team, has lost faith in Mac Jones. Clearly, Mac Jones has lost faith in Mac Jones. The Patriots were just awful, god awful under Mac, and at least it's watchable with Zappe, right? It looks like a functional offense. Now it's still not great, but it looks like at least a semi-functional offense with Zappe out there, and it wasn't that with Mac out there.
Because there's poise and there's timing, and Zappe hasn't been beaten into submission the way that Mac has been.
Right.
And I'll give credit to Mac in this regard. From all the reports, like from warm-ups and stuff, he's very engaged with his teammates, and he's loose and he's helping guys, and he's doing his job as a backup now. And credit to him for that. He's a former first-round pick and a guy who's had a lot of this deck stacked against him here in his job trying to be quarterback. It'd be very easy for him to shut it down and say, I don't want to be a part of this. And I don't think anybody would blame him. So the fact that he is staying around and being a good teammate, credit to him for that. And he'll last in this league as a backup probably because of that, because I think with a fresh start, some of the timing and mental stuff will end up being a little bit better for him. He'll probably never be a starting quarterback, but I think he's another guy who can bounce around the league and end up as a backup or a third string or be on a practice squad. Like if Nathan Peterman is in the league as long as
that's
was.
the thing.
Is he still in the league?
I think so. Pretty sure he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he was in the league, Mac will stay in the league.
Well, it just depends on. It's all about mindset, right? It's all about mindset. Who you are, how you approach. How do you approach the game, right? How do you approach practice? What kind of guy are you in the locker room, right? Do coaches like you? Do players like you, right? And are you a reliable guy? And are you not going to be? Frankly, are you not going to be? Are you not going to have the guy looking over his shoulder, right? And so I think that Mac kind of checks all his boxes, right? Where he's like, he seems like a good guy in the locker room. The players seem to like him. He works hard by all accounts. He's not that good, so you got to feel like you're not in danger of getting passed by a guy like Mac Jones, right? No one's clamoring saying, "Oh my God, we had that Mac Jones up there starting." No one's doing that,
Well, and this is kind of the issue with keeping Zappe around, is that there are probably still some people who are Zappe truthers around who if this team drafts a quarterback, they're going to start the Zappe chance. Maybe not after the way the last couple of weeks have gone.
Not the chance, but they'll say he didn't get a fair shake and he never got enough time and didn't get.
And it's clear from the way Zappe talks too that he still thinks I got a shot at being a starting quarterback in this league. And again, credit to him for having that mentality. It's the way you got to have it. But if he's a third-year quarterback who start at the end of this season, who's going to have that mentality, and you're bringing in the number 2 overall pick to compete with him. I just don't know how well that works in the locker room. And I'm not saying it would be a problem. I'm just saying these are the things you have to think about in building it out for next year. And
right. Well,
like
I think you sit him down and have an honest conversation. Look, buddy.
And I think he would, if he looks at his performance, he's going to know he knows already. You look at the press conferences, he knows it's not good enough.
Right.
And they're drafting somebody at number 2, and he's going to know. So maybe that'll work out. But also, it doesn't mean you have to get rid of him. But just because they get rid of him doesn't mean he's bad. It might be one of those where he needs a new spot, and Patriots can get an asset back, and you completely reset the room, and you have Drake May and Joe Flacco or whatever veteran quarterback you want to throw out there as the backup. Yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting. So there's a few comments that I want to just touch on about what the heck was the one. So John was saying the more I watch, the more I think we need an offensive tackle or two. I don't believe that. And I know I met Murph today. Murph and Butchie were at the game today. So I met them both, which was cool.
Shout out Murph. Love that guy.
He wants Joe Alt. He wants the Patriots to take Joe Alt in the first round. He wants them to trade down and take Joe Alt. And I get it. Joe Alt's a really good player and, could be a franchise left tackle. But, you don't have a quarterback. So, if you draft a tackle in the first round, I just don't know. I don't know what you what do you now? Then what do you do? Right? That's the hard part for me. If you draft a tackle in the first round, listen, they need a tackle. I do think Trent Brown needs to go. I think that Mike Onwenu should stay. And now Cole Strange, of course, got hurt again today, which sucks. But I think that it's one of those situations. I look at it and say, all right, they need a tackle for sure. I don't want them to draft one in the top of the first round. I want them to sign one. That's what I want them to do. And so it's tough, man. That's the hard thing for me. Is I understand it. I know they need a new left tackle. Maybe they need a new right tackle too. But I think Onwenu was good enough at right tackle. I do. And I don't know, man. I just think that I want that top 5 pick to be a quarterback, right? Or to be Marvin Harrison Jr. And then you draft a quarterback, whatever,
Yeah, it's tough because it's offensive tackle. I think long-term is clearly a need, but also when healthy, they have a starting 5 on this offensive line that is probably league average in the NFL. And that's good enough to put a rookie quarterback behind. Guys have been behind much worse lines than that. And succeeded. And honestly, it might be a better line than what Drake May has had at UNC at points this season. Or Caleb Williams at USC. Both of those guys have dealt with a lot of pressure. But I feel like you have to bring back Trent Brown and Onwenu because they're the 2 of the top 3 options. I think if you're not getting Trent Brown, you're going to get somebody who's probably worse for as inconsistent as Trent Brown is. And I think the tough part about today is you lose Cole Strange. And what have I been harping on for a month now, Pat, that the back half of the season was huge for Cole Strange for figuring out what you have going forward. And now the way that went today, that kind of feels like he's done for the season, especially with only 3 games left.
Yeah.
And if that's how it is, I think we all think here, regardless of what happens with Bill, there's going to be somebody new in this offensive coaching staff and somebody new in the front office evaluating things. And we don't know what they're going to think of Cole Strange in the guard position. I don't think that is the biggest need because I think you could bring back this line on paper for next season, knowing that it's a Band-Aid and you're kicking the can down the road because you can only address so many things at a time. But you might still need, you might go into the 2025 draft knowing, hey, we need a left tackle and a left guard here. And you saw it today too. It was just really bad luck. You lose Cole Strange. Trent Brown can't go. He's been trying to play through injury for a month now and trying and can't get it. It was inactive today. And then Connor McDermott goes down and you're at left tackle 3 and left guard 2 against a very, very good defensive line when you're already undermanned on offense. And that also felt like the point where things started to turn for the offense. Once the offensive line had 2 I mean, it's a chain with 2 weak links, and you're just not going to hold up.
But I thought Mafi played pretty well. I thought he did. And of course, then
better than
McDermott goes down, and you got Vidarian Lowe in there, which is like, you got to be kidding me, right? And so
you basically end the game.
Right, but you know what though? I just feel like what you saw in the first half was Zappe be decisive, get rid of the ball, get to the bottom of his drop, put that back foot in the ground, and bang, ball was out, right? And then in the second half, I think what you saw was him holding the ball and waiting to make. Now maybe they played it better, maybe the scheme was better. I don't know, but it seemed like it took a lot longer for him to get the ball out in the second half. And I think that obviously the offensive line didn't help, but I think that's a big part of why he took so many sacks at the end of the game, because he's holding on to the ball, right? And again, maybe that has more to do with the Chiefs than do with the Patriots, but like that seemed like a situation where it wasn't all on the offensive line there.
It looked like the Chiefs made an adjustment and started bringing all the corner blitzes because they realized the ball is coming out fast. Basically, all of these throws are underneath, and you're asking Zappe to make one read and throw it, and that's it. I think the Chiefs realized we know everything is going to be short and quick, so we can just play man aggressively across the board because we don't have to defend any deep shots, and we can bring an extra blitzer. And once we cover up Zappe's first read, by the time he resets, the free rusher, the corner, has gotten there and has gotten that pressure. And I think there was a lot of that in the second half as well. Which, that's the thing. Like, when you talk about what a good offense is, we don't really define what good means other than like statistical production. But in terms of something like this, being good in the NFL means being able to do a variety of things well, being able to attack defenses in different ways. If you think about it like a very complicated game of rock, paper, scissors, the more answers you can have for what the other team's going to throw at you, the more often you're going to be successful, the better your production is going to be, and you're going to be a good offense. And I think what you saw in the first half is that with these players and this offensive line and this quarterback, they can be good at distributing the ball underneath and using that to open up some intermediate shots and some things in the running game and being able to do that over and over. And you saw that once the defense adjusted and said, we're going to do everything we can to take that away, there wasn't something else they could turn to, especially with the offensive line out. You can't go to the running game. You don't have a quarterback who you trust deep. You don't have receivers who you trust deep. So you can't try to burn it with shots over the top. And you couldn't protect long enough to get to some other stuff. I've also noticed like this has been a consistent thing since Mac came in. One of the ways that you protect a quarterback when you don't have a good offensive line is you roll them out and you do play action and things like that. They don't really roll out Zappe or Mac Jones, and that makes me think those guys aren't good or aren't trustworthy in those situations.
They're not.
And play action's tough because if you're down by 10 points in the second half, who cares about play action? Defense isn't biting on that. If you run the ball and pick up 5 yards, who cares? They just want to make sure they don't get beat over the top. So you lose some of the tools that you have to actually beat a defense like that. And that's where I honestly thought a lot of the sacks in the second half were a receiver problem. The fact that you didn't have guys who could be an X factor there. And, no Kendrick Bourne, who's done for the season. No Juju Smith-Schuster, who I talked about after the Pittsburgh game. I thought that was the healthiest he looked all season. What happened?
No idea.
I was out. Yeah.
No, absolutely no idea. It's crazy.
Yeah. And Devontae Parker is back and had, probably his best game of the season, second best game of the season, but also that felt concentrated in like 2 or 3 drives, which is how it usually is with him. He's like, he's going to make a couple plays here and there. And then, outside of a couple isolated things, he's not going to consistently open things up or create space.
Right. So, yeah, it's a mess. The offense is a mess. Here's what I'll say about the Patriots, though. Their defense, as bad as the offense has been, the defense has been good. And not only has the defense been good, right? It's the fact that you're getting these players that all of a sudden look like legitimately good players. Mac Wilson's had, I don't know what the hell Mac Wilson ate this year, but my God, he looks like a completely different player. Different player. And so he looks awesome. Christian Barmore is incredible. He's been phenomenal. And and he's been good after getting after the passer, which is really solid. He's been really good against the run, like really good against the run. And so I was really happy. I thought he played fantastic today. He had a sack. I think he actually had 2 half sacks is what I think he had. But
sounds right.
Nevertheless, he had a full sack. He had, I think, 6 tackles, something like that. He played great. Anthony Jennings is turning into like a legitimately like really good run defender. Like I feel like every time is a play for like no gain or a loss, Anthony Jennings is the guy making that play, right? I just like he's in the backfield all the time. And he's not a great pass rusher, but that's okay. Like I don't mind that he's not a great pass rusher because he's so good against the run. I'm willing to do that. And so and you have guys like that, and you're looking at in Keon White looks like he can play. And so in Marte Mapu today, I have been so loud about Mapu playing linebacker, and like that's like the 3rd snap all year I've seen him play linebacker. And he not only did he intercept the pass, he ripped that ball away from I don't even know who the hell the guy was. Was it Noah
Blake
Gray?
Bell, I think.
Oh, Blake Bell.
Noah Gray, one of them. Yeah,
ripped that ball out of his hands. That was awesome. Like that's what you got to do, man.
It wasn't the same, but there was shades of like Teddy Bruschi on was that Dominic Rhodes back in the playoffs, and it wasn't quite as iconic as that.
It wasn't, but it was good.
It lost a 3-11 record, but when I think if there's one thing I take away from the Mapu thing too, because he did that and then he gets burnt later in the game for a touchdown, and I see that. My reaction is he needs to be playing linebacker more, because the ability is there. You just need the instincts to get to the NFL level, and you're only going to do that by being out there. And it's kind of tough because like Mapu, I think, will be a really good player eventually. It's he plays 2 positions where it's usually a tough transition to the NFL, but there are also positions where the Patriots are loaded. Who saw Mac Wilson becoming this good of an asset? Jelani Tavai becoming one of the better linebackers in the NFL is the way he's played this year.
Yeah.
Juwan Bentley being as good as he is. And then you got all the stand-up outside linebackers, and then you got Duggar and Peppers patrol in the secondary. And like we haven't mentioned Adrian Phillips in here, who feels like he's kind of fallen by the wayside this season, but who's also a productive and useful player back there. And Mapu's another guy in a group within embarrassment of riches out there.
Yeah.
Which, I think in some ways does make you question the draft pick when you have that much talent at those spots and the way you want to handle it going forward.
You had that much talent there, though. I mean, especially at linebacker. I looked at Mac Wilson going in this year thinking, this guy can't play. And, Jelani Tavai is a good player, but he's only a run defender. And, Juwan Bentley's pass coverage got better last year, but he's still not really that good, right?
Tavai has become actually one of the better, at least per PFF, which I know there's, we can talk about how trustworthy they are. He's become one of the better pass defenders as a linebacker, which that is just like, you never would have seen that coming from him. When I think this is one of the things too that's kind of frustrating is that in some ways their like team building approach to linebacker isn't that far off from like their team building approach for a wide receiver. The reality is, but at linebacker, you get a bunch of these guys who end up being really good players, and at wide receiver, they're all not great. And that's
all
the luck. Right. Some of it's the luck, and some of it I think is absolutely the coaching. So I'm assuming. By the way, we're talking about linebacker and coaching. I'm assuming you saw the headline that Greg Bedard ran earlier today about Gerard Mayo. I'm not gonna.
Dink sometimes,
it doesn't deserve attention, but the report was something along the lines of people inside the building not liking Gerard Mayo, which I'm not going to trust that for 1 second. But if he coaches the linebackers, and if he's able to develop people the way he's been able to develop those guys as a head coach, then I like it. And I think when you see the team culture, like if we're saying Mayo is the next guy, and you look at the team culture right now and the buy-in and the effort and the defensive scheming, I'm gonna feel I'll feel good about that hire if that's the direction they go in.
Yeah, I mean the hard thing for me is that and then immediately people come out and talk about because Boston's racist and that's why and I'm like, no, that's not why. That's not why that report came out, right? I think that report came out because
attention.
It's coming from, well, yes, but it's also, might be coming from someone who's loyal to Bill and wants to kind of throw some cold water on the take that, Mayo is the next guy and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
right? And I might be wrong about that, but
or maybe Mayo has a little bit of a bigger head now that he thinks he's the next guy, and
yeah,
somebody in the building doesn't like that, and it doesn't
right.
mean
Just takes
doesn't
one
say
guy.
anything about
Just
what
takes
his
one guy to say something, and that's so.
Yeah.
And there's no way, no one said anything about that. No one's, and it's like, what's his face? Breer was like, well, people don't like how, like, they do like the things, and he goes over the film, and then he like chews out the defense, let's choose out the offense, and like the defense playing really well. And it's like, bro, we think he's just gonna let the defense slide? Like they don't make all their players are great. Like, no, dude, that's not how it works. Like, what are we talking about? Like, it's just that's the stuff that I'm like, all right, you're making crap up,
Yeah, well, and it's you got 32 different teams in the NFL, and they're not all great comment from Dark Blue Gold. Maybe seems more of an aioli guy. Yeah. You got 32 different team cultures and guys who work different ways. And I'm sure the way Mayo works isn't perfect for every single player in the defensive staff there. And that's fine. Like, that's the way this works. Just because it doesn't work for every single person doesn't make it bad. It means you get guys who are culture fits. In some ways, it's no different than a regular 9-to-5 job in that respect. You need people who work well together and see eye to eye on a personality level. And I don't, if it gets to the point where they can't get good players ever because nobody wants to come to New England, then yeah, but that's like Urban Meyer, and that's the only guy I can think of in the NFL who's been that level.
Yeah.
I don't think Gerard Mayo's that guy. If he were, we'd have heard about it by now that he was kicking people.
Yeah, correct. And Charles Green says, he doesn't want a defensive head coach, and I don't necessarily blame him, but look at the Texans. Right? Mm-hmm. Look at the Texans, right? They have for God's sakes, what the hell's his name? The linebacker.
D'Amico Ryans.
Thank you. D'Amico, like blanked on his name for a second. They have D'Amico Ryans as their head coach, right? He's a defensive coach. The key is you have to have an offensive coordinator that knows what they're doing. Part of the job as a head coach is to delegate. So you have to understand what's going on in the offense, but you also have to delegate those jobs to guys that know exactly what they're talking about. And so for me, I look at that and I say, well, that's got to be, you have to look at that and say that, I'm delegating the offensive duties to this guy. And I'm going to take a step back and we're going to go from there. And that's going to be that. Right. And I think that that's okay. Now, I do also think that, you have to take an interest in the offense. You have to try to learn the offense. Bill Belichick was a defensive coach. He learned the offense over time and became a guy that could do everything, right?
Mm.
And so, and so that's kind of that's the thing for me, right? And so, and again, I'm not even going to. People are talking about Texans having a good GM. I'm not even going to get into Nick Casario discussion about how he took over that job in 2021. If you want to talk about the bad drafts that went on from like 27, from 2016 on here, okay, Nick Casario was the head guy here. Okay, I know that Bill Belichick was the head guy here, but Nick Casario was here. Yeah. So let's get.
Sometimes there's a luck element there too, and then the other part, with Houston, they drafted a quarterback who seemed to be an out of the box superstar, and you do that, and it fixes a lot for your team. And the Patriots are, in theory, at least, in position, or will be in position, to do the same thing in April. And you know what? If you have a coordinator who is baseline competent and knows what he's doing, and a head coach who is baseline competent at getting his team prepared, and a quarterback who can do that, and a supporting staff that is NFL level, not what they have in Carolina, something better than that, then you have an opportunity for guys to succeed. You look at the Slowick, I think is his name, the offensive coordinator there in Houston, is already rumored for head coaching interviews because of what he has done there this season. And he was a relative unknown before that. So, and it's also, you go back and you look at, grading head coaching hire articles from, February or March or whatever of any year, and then go forward 3 seasons from then and see how those hires actually panned out and cross-reference the grades to the way the things actually happened. Right. The trendy hires are not always the way to go. And it's kind of a crapshoot when it comes to hiring coaches, in part also because your job as a coach is tied to the talent you have, which is tied to the drafts you have, which is also a little bit of a crapshoot in the way it comes out.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
I think I'm not going to judge any hire they make here, too, assuming they go in a different direction, too harshly until we actually see what it looks like on the field and just learn about the process and give it some time. Unless they come out and say, actually, Urban Meyer is the guy we want, or something like that, or what, or their craft. Like, what's Bill Parcells up to these days? Can we bring him back? Like, unless they're doing something ridiculous like that, I'm gonna trust that Kraft generally knows what he's doing here, and we'll go through it from there. These things take years, but usually years before you know how good the hire is.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So, all right, let's take a break because we haven't taken a break yet. Let's do that quick, and then there are a few things I want to get to on the other side, and then we'll get out of here. All right, here we go. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. MA 21 plus and present in Mass. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $5 pre-game moneyline wager required. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. GamblingHelpLineMA.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. All right, so there's a few things here, and we'll get into Buffalo and how Buffalo, of course, won back-to-back games, against two really good teams, absolutely blew out the Cowboys, who, by the way, really need home field advantage because they're gonna be in some really tough. They're gonna go in. You're telling me that team's gonna go into Philadelphia in the winter and win? No chance.
They play at Miami next weekend, I think, right? That's really interesting
game. But again, good weather, warm out, they'll be fine. I'm more worried about for them, going into a cold weather game and winning. I don't see that happening.
I also think they went on the road against a team that was desperate, like back up against the wall, desperate, and came out firing. And I don't know. I still think the Cowboys are probably a top 5 team in the NFL the way things have been.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. I just it's interesting. So. All right. Anyways, let's get the other thing I wanted to get into was Bill Belichick, and my dad said this at the game, and I agree with him to an extent. He wants to see Belichick back, and what he was talking about was the team is playing hard still. They haven't quit. They're not that good. Okay, it's not a ton of talent, but they're playing their asses off right now. The defense played really well against a really good Kansas City team, right? And so you talked about that end of the first half. They give up that touchdown, then they kick a field goal to start the second half on the first play from scrimmage, first offensive play. Zappe throws that terrible interception, and they end up scoring another touchdown. And that touchdown they scored was an outrageous throw and catch by Mahomes to CEH. It was outrageous. So
you just got to tip your cap. I mean, the way you defend that is by having your own guy who can do something like that.
Right, and there's no way to stop that. I mean, that throw was incredible. Tavai had very good coverage on him, and Allaire made an unbelievable catch. It is what it is, right? And so
a brilliant throw, too.
Right, 100%.
Perfectly placed.
But here's the thing, right? And Charles Green's been talking about this, about how he doesn't trust Belichick with the top pick, and I don't know. I don't know if I do or not. I'm not sure. What I can tell you is this. Bill Belichick's not giving up GM duties. He's not. And even if he does, there's too many guys who've been listening to Bill Belichick for 20 years. He's been the guy for, more than 25 years. He's been the guy. Now he's going to step back and not be the GM. That's fine. But like, are you really going to listen to the other guy? Are you going to, for 25 years, we've known what we've been looking for. Now all of a sudden there's going to be a new guy. He's going to be the head coach still, but there's going to be a new GM. I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah.
From the same respect, if you trust that Belichick can make the right pick, and again, offensively, his track record's been really bad in the past 15 years offensively. But if you trust he can get the right guy in, I think he's shown he's a good enough coach to get you there. The players love him. The players obviously respect him. And so, I think it's a tough decision. I do think that it is time to move on. I do think that. But still, it's one of those things for me that I just it's a tough question, and I think there's no doubt that the Patriots 100% are still playing hard. They haven't quit. They haven't stopped. And so that's the thing for me, that at least you can show that.
Yeah, and I agree with that method, like that reasoning. I think that's very fair. I also think when we talk about the draft with Bill, I think there are a lot of very valid concerns there. Not among my concerns is what they would do with the number 2 overall pick, because look at what Bill said after the game today. He was asked about why they weren't more aggressive later in this game, why they didn't go for it on 4th down. And part of his answer was essentially Zappe isn't good enough and we don't trust him.
Right.
And the last time they were in a position like that with a quarterback, what do? They go to the draft and they take the best quarterback on the board when he's there. If you're at number 2, it's however you feel about Drake May or Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams or anything like that. I think all 3 are unambiguously better prospects than Mac Jones was when he came out. And the guy who makes the football decisions for your team has identified that quarterback is a serious, area of need for you. Yeah. I think literally, you could put in anybody who knows anything about football as GM, and they're just going to take a quarterback with that pick of the Patriots at number 2. If you're talking about pick 35, pick 70, whatever, or 60, whatever, and what comes later in the draft, I think that's a fair concern with, where they've missed on receivers in that area of the draft before, and the fact that you're going to have to go get that. But
again, you're not wrong. But can you draft the right guy? It's fine that you draft a quarterback number 2 overall. That's great. The number 1 guy on your board. Well, if the number 1 guy on your board is Mitch Trubisky and Patrick Mahomes is on the board, and you draft Trubisky over Mahomes, that's a disaster, right? And I know people, and I don't know if Drake May is the next Mitch Trubisky, and I'm not saying that he is. And I know a lot of people love Drake May. But man, I just, I don't know. It worries me that you got to draft a quarterback, but you have to draft the right quarterback. If you draft the wrong quarterback, you're screwed, and you set yourself back 5 years.
Well, and the problem with this whole thing is that if there was an easy way to draft the right quarterback, then
of course,
it'd be an easy thing, and there's no way to do it without a serious amount of risk. If you had to place bets on whether the guy the Patriots take at pick number 2, who's a quarterback, will be a franchise quarterback, will be a guy who gets a second contract, it's probably a 50-50 bet. It's probably even money both sides there. Like that's how this goes. And getting it right is very, very important, but also in some ways very simple. I think it's going to be the way I've seen this from most is that there's a consensus 1 and 2 and a consensus number 3 and then a little bit of a jumble after that.
Right.
And the Patriots are going to be in a position to draft somebody who's either consensus 1 or 2. And I think you kind of have to stick in that tier. There is also a certain wisdom of the crowd there in that, you trust that not only do we think that these 2 guys are the 2 best, May and Williams, but also everybody else who watches them agrees that they're the 2 best. And if you fail doing that, then that means everybody has failed on this, and we're going by the book on it. You know what? Trubisky was ahead of Mahomes on a lot of those boards, and sometimes Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's also an interesting draft in that, I have been on this podcast for a while, a little bit anti-May, pro Daniels. And one of the reasons I will scale that back a little bit is because now we're talking about Daniels with the number 2 overall pick. This is a guy who started for 5 years in college and didn't break out until year 5. May broke out the first year he was a starter and has played 2 years at that level and is a redshirt sophomore in college. He's 3 or 4 years younger than Jaden Daniels is at this point, and they are, in some ways, May doesn't have a Heisman, but he has more sustained success in some ways than Daniels has. So I liked Daniels a lot as a guy you might take at 10 or 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
At number 2, May is risky. He's got issues, but he also has a crazy high ceiling, and he's young enough that he still has room to grow. Daniels may have maxed out in some ways. I don't think May has. And I would have no issues with that. I think whoever your GM is going to be, whoever's making the call in April, is probably going to feel very similarly. The only way you're not doing this is if, you're signing a veteran like Kirk Cousins and you think he can be it, or if somebody hits the trade market.
Or Baker Mayfield.
And the other thing, too, when we talk about the quarterback position, we kind of haven't talked about it because it wasn't a very well substantiated report, but it did come out of New York last year from Craig Carton that Belichick had called about Aaron Rodgers, about trading for him.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sound like a guy who was sold on Mac Jones. This sounds like a guy who was like, hey, I'm thinking about other quarterbacks, and he's willing to go in other directions with quarterbacks. And he's clearly not happy with Bailey Zappe and clearly not happy with Mac Jones. And clearly knows that's a position that you need to upgrade. And, whoever makes that call, it's going to be both a hard but a simple decision. I think it'd be the same for anybody.
Yeah, it's tough. And it's, and look, it's not an easy decision, and it's not easy to know who your guy is going to be, right? I don't know who the guy is going to be, right? But man, it's that's hard for me. And again, that's why these guys get paid the big bucks, right? And someone said, that they're rolling with MHJ and Marvin Harrison Jr. and maybe you like Michael Penix, and maybe you can trade back into the first round to get Michael Penix. Maybe you can draft Michael Penix at the top of the second round. I don't know, right? But again, Michael Penix is the same issue that you have with Jaden Daniels, where he's old. He's an older player, and so
a lot of injuries there too.
With a ton of injuries, and so I don't know. I'm not saying that he can't be good. It's just I'm not sure. And so do you get the overall consensus number 1 wide receiver, like the wide receiver that everyone knows is incredible, and then you take a quarterback in the second round, or you sign a quarterback? And I think Kirk Cousins is probably out because he had the Achilles. And to me, that the Achilles happened too late, where maybe he'll be ready for the start of the season, but I don't trust that he'll be ready for the start of the season. And so, we'll see. We'll see. I just think that, I think that it may not be the worst idea. Draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and go from there. Now, if Caleb Williams is available, if Drake May goes number 1 and Caleb Williams is there, I'm taking him. I don't care. I don't care what people say. I'm taking him because he's the guy. Okay. Anyone that listens to this podcast, watch Patrick Mahomes on Sunday. Holy shit. Patrick Mahomes does things that no one else on earth can do. When he's rolling to his left, it was a throw. I think it was Rashee Rice in the middle of the field. And he's rolling to his left, avoids pressure, rolls to his left, and is running to his left, and just doesn't even stop running. He just turns his body and just fires it 20 yards downfield to a wide open Rashee Rice in the middle of the field. It's that's unfair. It's not even fair. That's just in the throw to CEH. I mean, again, he's rolling to his left off 1 foot as he's throwing, and he throws an absolutely perfect throw right over the linebacker. And again, guy makes a great catch, but that throw is on the move. It's not like he's, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. And no one else in this draft can do those things except for him.
Well, and I think Drake May does show a little bit of that stuff, not nearly to the same level that Caleb Williams does.
Yeah.
But But yeah, and I want to address Team 617. Thank you for commenting. He brought up that, somebody who had sustained success and he was young with crazy upside is also Trey Lance, and a guy who didn't do it in a great
He did
conference.
not have sustained success though. He played for a
No,
year and a half.
No, he played for a year in one game.
Right.
But also, this also applies to Patrick Mahomes. And, like I said, it's 50-50 if you get a good quarterback out of this. You can do all of the right things with the right process and draft the right quarterback and surround him with the right guys. And sometimes it just, doesn't work out. That's why this is so hard to do in the NFL. This is the multi-million. How many $1 million did Patrick Mahomes get? Was it a $500 million deal? Something like that. This is the $500 million question right here is how you consistently find ways to draft quarterbacks. If there's an easy way to do it, we'd all be doing it. There's a risk involved, and you're gonna have to go out on a limb a little bit because even with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, there is still a risk. So yeah, you do your due diligence and you make sure that everything is right off the field, and you're gonna have to take a leap of faith there. And regardless of who it is, I think that's where the Patriots are. I love the other offensive players. Like I hate passing on Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors or Joe Alt or Fashanu or anybody like that. But if the Patriots had a decent quarterback, it'd be nearly a 500 team at this point with all the close games they've been in that have been in only because of quarterback play. Yeah. They might be in, with how bad the NFL has been this year, they might be in playoff contention if they had an actual decent quarterback, and you can fix the rest later. By the way, what we're talking about, like the receiver position, and I'd mentioned leadership earlier.
Yeah.
The name I keep coming back to, Pat, who I think might be a really good addition to this team next year, is a guy who is experienced and a guy who knows how to win, who has the Super Bowl, who's very accomplished in this league. Mike Evans. He's a guy who we think is going to hit free agency, and a guy who played with Tom Brady, and he knows how to do everything you need to do to be a true professional winner in the NFL. And if you could get a guy like that with a rookie receiver, I like that idea a lot, and I think it's a good bridge solution to your next wide receiver stuff, because you want to have a good enough situation for a quarterback to come into, knowing that in 2, 3, 4 years, it's not going to look like that. It is going to change over time, but it's a starting point.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because I've hated Evans forever, and mostly it's because of he was on my fantasy team, and he always I feel like he was up and down and up and down and up and down, up and down, up and down. But my God, dude, he just does it every year. He's good every year. He's consistently good. You know what you're going to get out of him. Now, he's not great. He's not great all the time, and part of it's because he's hurt, and part of it, but you know that he's a consistent player for you. You know he's going to be good, and so I would love it. I'd love to have him here. I don't think it's going to cost too much money to get him here, but man, if you draft a QB at number 2, you sign Mike Evans, and you draft a wide receiver in the 3rd round. You
bring back most of the guys who were important to this team's success.
You bring back Damari Douglas. You bring back Kendrick Bourne. You bring back Juju, I think. And, you let that bum Devontae Parker walk. And I think all of a sudden your offense is looking pretty good, right? And you give your guy a target. And I think, even if you want to draft a tackle in the 2nd round, because I think that's where it's headed,
Yeah. And it gives you, a guy who's super consistent, a guy who works hard. Also, he's a big receiver with good hands and a big frame. And just in some ways, it's almost, he's not a tight end, but he gives you that tight end security blanket for the quarterback. And especially, one of May's biggest issues right now is he's got a little bit of a spray on the ball. He's a little bit inaccurate at times. And you got a guy who can still turn an inaccurate pass into a 12-yard completion for you. That helps build confidence. And you're hoping, by year 2, it gets a little bit better. In year 3, it gets a little bit better. And you're able to build on stuff. So I like that. And, T. Higgins falls into the same category. And I'd love for him to be here too. I just think he's less likely to hit the market. And if he does, he's also going to be a lot more expensive. And I'm not afraid of shelling out money. But I also think Evans is probably better than Higgins still. It's close. And obviously older, but I'll take the cheaper player, but the slightly cheaper player for now, considering some of the other benefits you're going to get from him too.
Right. I agree. And so that would be fun. It would be fun to see Mike Evans here, but we'll see. So, and I think too, it's going to be, and Team 617 points out, like, free agency comes before the draft. And so you're able to figure out what you're going to do in the draft based on what you do in free agency. And I think for me that's kind of the idea, right? Like, you have $100 million. You got to spend it. You got to spend it. Go out and spend your freaking money. And
they're probably going to spend half of it just bringing back guys who are hitting free agency too.
And that's okay, right? You sign, you sign Kyle Duggar, you sign Mike Onwenu, you sign, probably I would say you give Christian Barmore an extension. I'd say you want to take care of that. You're gonna have to.
Can you do the Barmore extension now? Oh yeah, you can after this season, right?
After the season, yes, after the season, because he'll be going into this final year. And then you have, Matthew Judon. You're gonna have to give a new contract to. And so you have those guys that you're gonna have to pay, right? Fine, but that's okay. I think you have to keep those guys,
Yeah, and that's regardless of who the coach is of this team next year. You got good culture guys in this locker room who you're going to want to keep around. I think Barmore and Judon are going to be parts of that. Guys who you want to lock up, keep intact, and Bentley is part of that. And I think that's another thing on offense. Who are your culture guys? I think we think Kendrick Bourne is one of them. I think we think Hunter Henry is one of them. David Andrews is one of them. Not worried about him leaving. It's worried about him retiring. And that's about it. Right. And this is another spot where having a guy like Mike Evans helps because he's an immediate culture guy in a way that I don't know if T. Higgins is. That's not slight to T. Higgins.
No, right. So, So I don't know.
Yeah. Can we complain about the refs for a minute now that we're near the end of this? Didn't change the outcome, but my God, they were so bad today. Awful. And it's been. Here's a question. Did you watch Lions Broncos last night? Because this set me off.
I watched most. I didn't watch all of it, but I did watch some of it.
Did you see the sequence where the Broncos scored a touchdown on 3 straight plays and none of them counted?
No.
The Broncos got down to the goal line, and it looked like the ball was a cross, but they called him down at like the inch mark live. In the replay, you couldn't really tell if he was a cross. And they got barely into the end zone on the next play, and they said he didn't do it. And they didn't challenge it for some reason. And they run into the end zone on 3rd down, and they called an offensive offsides on it for the way the guard was aligned, which was really ticky-tack. It was close. And, they did that and backed up 5 yards and then had to kick a field goal, which they were losing 21-3. And you're now at the 6-yard line because of the penalty, and it's 4th and goal. I don't know why you're kicking a field goal in that situation, or 21-3 or 28-3. The field goal doesn't help you there.
Right.
Just, you got to go for the touchdown.
That's crazy.
But so there was that. But then the game today was just the phantom defensive holding. And
it's the incompetence. To me, it's the incompetence. Like, they're so incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're looking at. They, sometimes they call plays and sometimes they don't. The offensive face mask against Demario Douglas. I mean, I guess he touched his face mask, but like,
they showed a replay on it, and he did hook it. So I think it was the right call. I just never see that, and I think it was incidental. It's just awful luck to have it happen.
Man, when Mike Reese is tweeting about how the officials are bad, it's bad because Mike Reese doesn't go there, right? Yeah, and for him to say like the refs were 7 or something like that, I was like, whoa, that's he's pissed about it.
And the whole thing on like Connor McDermott that took back the touchdown was the right call. The problem was that the Chiefs also didn't get flagged for it. So, you just want that consistency. And, it's quite frankly, I don't think anybody in the NFL is competent enough for this to be any kind of conspiracy or anything. I think this is a very hard sport to officiate, and we all on TV get a much better look at what's going on than the people on the field, which makes it puts the officials in a tough position. But I think we got to find a way to get more consistency out of this thing. And look at, I don't know if you watched the Buffalo Dallas game with the Josh Allen roughing the passer. in
Josh
that
Allen's
one.
he's just see. The problem is that the NFL is now become similar to the NBA, where if you flop, you'll get the call. And listen, in fairness, guys have been flopping for a while now. Brady used to
Guys have
flop a little
flopped
bit.
you flopped as long as it's effective and gets the calls. I don't
Right.
blame the players for doing it,
Yeah.
but
But you can't
I
you
just
can't fall for the flop, man. Especially when it's Josh
when
Allen. Josh
Allen
Allen's huge. Like, come
he
on.
he has a reputation for this too, and I
Yeah.
think it was oh my god, I'm totally. Oh, Doug Farrar had tweeted something about how Cam Newton watching Josh Allen getting all these calls, wondering where these whistles were when it
Right.
was him out there. It's
Yeah.
and Allen is a big body, tough quarterback, and he takes a lot of hits, and he deserves some of the flags. And because of that, why are you asking for like extra flags when a guy barely touches you and you're going out there like a fish? Like,
Yeah, it's
and
stupid.
why are you falling for that if you're an official? The dude has a reputation about this, and I'm sure you've received calls from teams saying, "Hey, this isn't a penalty. You can't call this."
Right.
The fact that officials are still falling for it is just ridiculous at this point.
Yeah. No, it's bad. And the officiating and unfortunately it's been like that. It's been like that all year. It's really been like that for the last 2 years. It's just like, man, what are you doing? Like so. But
I
unfortunately, every team
still
deals with it. It doesn't make it any better or easier to deal with, but every team deals with it, unfortunately. And, we can just kind of have
yeah.
to go from there,
I still think
So,
the officiating as a whole would be better. If you got just like a 45-year-old guy to sit in a control room with a couple beers, watch the games, and he has the power to overrule any call.
I mean,
If it
it's
doesn't
just,
make sense to him or something is clear and obvious to him, then
and
yeah,
the
all right.
NHL does it. Like the NHL does it.
Yeah, they got yeah.
Why aren't we doing it in the NFL? Doesn't
To
make
be
any
fair, the
sense.
NHL also still, despite that, has insane inconsistencies with
That's
it,
correct.
despite the same people
But
looking at
but
every call.
at least, you're looking goes and look, you have to be able to challenge. In my opinion, you got to be able to challenge those things. You have to. Because
Yeah,
if it's going to be
which
that bad and that inconsistent, you're going to have to be able to challenge them.
And that I also think another part of this is we should have some kind of timer in the review process because how many times do you watch a game on TV and they show you two replays and you know what the call is, and
Right.
the break continues for another 2.5 minutes, and
Right.
it's like, all right, come on, doesn't take that long to figure it out, and if it takes that long to figure it out, it's probably not clear and obvious, so
Right.
you shouldn't be touching the call. Like let's move it along here. Uh,
I also
the older
didn't.
I've gotten, the more I've come around on like I don't need every call to be correct. I just need every call to be like every call should be reasonable and timely so we can get on with it. And I can accept
Yes.
some missed calls some of the time because that's just going to happen and it's probably going to even out. But let's make sure we get the easy ones right and we get the easy ones right quickly so we can move along with the product and enjoy the game.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense. But we'll see. I don't know, man. It's just I don't know what the solution is, but it's not whatever the hell they're doing right now. So, by the way, Space Cadet
There's a
says trade for Justin Fields and take Marvin Harrison at 2. Man, I'll tell you what. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. We've talked about Fields a little bit on here. I loved Fields coming out. I wanted them to draft him in 2021. When the Bears traded up, when there was a trade up to 10, I was like, this is it. Yes. And then they blew it. And I was like, God damn it. It was the freaking Bears that traded up, not the Patriots, right? And so, it's a situation where I think Fields has shown flashes, but never enough. I question whether Bill O'Brien, if you get a guy that's a running quarterback like that, I question whether Bill O'Brien is the guy. I
yeah,
question
I
whether Bill
question it
O'Brien's the
too.
guy to do that, right? And so
Yeah,
then that becomes a problem
I
where it's
know.
like, well, if you Bill O'Brien's your offensive coordinator, you got to draft a guy that fits your offensive coordinator, or do you need to go into the 21st century and have a guy that will open up the playbook to guys that will run more and so on and so forth? And so
Yeah, and it's
I don't know.
well, and you look at even Drake May as a guy who's very good with his feet and can run. And I don't trust Bill O'Brien to really harness that the
Yeah.
way you're going to get from maybe somebody else. It doesn't even have to be somebody younger. QB runs have existed for a while. It's just got to be somebody else who knows how to capitalize on that. My only issue with the Fields thing is that you're only getting him for a year or 2 years if you pick up the option on him, but it's a short window.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to hit on it right away. Like, you don't get development time with him. It either works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you're right back where you were right away.
But I think that's
And like,
okay. If you like his film enough and you feel like he can play, which, by the way, I mean, he played today. He played awesome today, and his team let him down, man. He hit guys
Yeah.
on wide open passes that just kept dropping him, and it's like, dude, what are we doing, man? Like
that Tyler Scott drop on the first play, second play, the last drive was crazy.
Well, and then was it Cole Kmet on the long pass? Who the hell was the tight end on the long pass that dropped it? And you're like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
It's a gorgeous throw. And then even the last play, for God's sakes, he throws the Hail Mary
right into the hand.
And Mooney drops it in his hands. It's like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. They said Fields is the first player in the same game to get intercepted on the last play of the first half and the last play of the game. He got picked off on his Hail Mary attempt in the first half, and he got picked off in his Hail Mary attempt in the second half. It's unbelievable.
See, I liked Fields coming out a lot, and that's who I wanted New England to draft, and I thought he might fall to where the Patriots were. I like getting the runway in the multiple years. That's my only issue with it.
I totally agree.
And I'd rather, especially if it's a new coaching staff or whatever, and we're resetting, let's just go with a fresh guy. And it might not work, but if you get 3 years to mold a quarterback who's young, I'll take that over a guy who has already been, attempted to be molded by a bunch of people. And
I think the biggest question. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think he might be something, and you've seen more. I think you've seen more from him lately than you've seen from Mac Jones in the NFL. He's got the great running ability and everything, but I think when we've been talking about the rebuild, we're also talking about not how we make this team great in 2024, but how do we build it so it can be great in 2025 and 2026,
which is a great point.
And Fields makes it tougher because you have to pay him right away, and if you need wide receivers, or you need to add free agents, so you got to pay Christian Barmore, you got to pay Christian Gonzalez eventually, and the other guys are going to have to pay. It just, now you're in a salary cap issue possibly all of a sudden, and I'm not against it, but I feel like Fields to Atlanta is a more natural fit.
I agree with you. So, by the way, I apologize to the listeners out there. I completely blew it. I didn't have a song lined up for today. Taylor Swift is at the game today. Should have had a freaking Taylor Swift song ready to go, and I completely blew it. And I apologize.
You know what? I
apologize to the listeners out there. I blew that.
You know what I absolutely love about Taylor Swift at the game, by the way? I'm gonna give two things. Okay. One, I'll start with the sweet thing, which is that apparently she went to all the hospitality workers and everything, and she was just tipping them with $100 bills. And we only know that because they took pictures of it. She did no promo of this on her own. Yeah. So, and by all accounts, that she's been very good about that. So huge props to her for doing that. The second, for as annoying as it was when Travis Kelce flopped in the end zone on that play, the replay of Taylor Swift losing her mind at it and calling for a flag is so relatable that it's all right, she's in. She's one of us now. That's how long is it going to? Maybe she has an alt account on Twitter or somewhere where she's getting into it with Stephen Ruiz or something about different formations, or getting into it with, I don't know, Chiefs writers about stuff like that. She seems very invested in that, and it seems very authentic, and it's fun. So I enjoyed that, and I like Taylor Swift. I did have to root against her today, but now that the game's over, I can go back to liking her.
Right, that's the way it goes. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so we'll see. Look, there's a long way to go. 3 games left, and then the rebuild starts, right? And I think that's going to be. By the way, the Ravens have the worst injury luck of all time, dude. Keaton Mitchell looks so good this year as an undrafted rookie running back. Looks like he just tore his ACL. Ronnie Stanley's coming off.
I saw people saying the injury was bad, but I hadn't seen a clip.
Yeah, I didn't see the clip, but he was the one getting carted off. So, but I didn't see the clip. But yeah. So that's on her show, right? She gave tons and tons of bonuses. I mean, listen, it was she made a ridiculous amount of money from the tour, but still.
His team 617 said $55 million in bonuses to her staff, everybody across it working on her Eras tour. So awesome stuff there. That's just taking care of people. I also Old Man Mob had commented this a while ago, but I'm bringing it back up. He said, I've been doing mock drafts. Would be awesome if Matt and Pat did a stream showing and rating mock drafts. I think we're going to have a show Wednesday night will be our next one. So if anybody has mock drafts, wants to send them in for us to talk about, send them to one of us, on Twitter or where we're doing that.
We do have a guest coming on Wednesday night, so I'm not sure if we're going to do that Wednesday night. But we might.
Okay, so maybe the Wednesday after.
I gotta check with our guest to see if she wants to come on for like half the show or the whole show. I'm not sure what she's going to do. So if she only comes on for half the show, then I'm in for that. If she comes on for the whole show, it just depends on kind of what she wants and whatnot.
And
we'll go from
if you guys do mock drafts, send them to us. We'll get to them at some point. I mean, the way these games are going, we could do do some with the post game reaction shows too.
Absolutely.
We're doing for the Broncos game. We're doing our show night of Christmas. We're gonna do it the day after the game.
So I think so. The only thing is that I was looking at the schedule. It's gonna be weird. We're definitely not doing a Christmas Eve because obviously Christmas Eve is Christmas Eve. I'm not doing a podcast 11:30 on Christmas Eve. Santa Claus is coming, and hello, I gotta be in bed so Santa can come. Exactly. So we're not doing that. I'm thinking the next night, but then I don't know if I'm around Wednesday night. I guess maybe I'm around Wednesday night. I'm not around Thursday night. I might be around Wednesday night. I got to figure out. I just figured I didn't know if it would made sense to go Monday and Tuesday night, but whatever, doesn't matter. I think that's the plan right now is to go like around this time 9:30 on Monday night, the night of Christmas Day, because it's Christmas Day. Everything's over, and now you can come listen.
After your Christmas dinner, you can settle in and listen to our podcast. Maybe you got a nice new pair of headphones you can listen to us on, or a new laptop, and you can watch the show. A new phone where you can make sure you're subscribed to the feed.
Love it. I love it. That'd be fun. So, but yes, that's what we got. So that'll be this week. This week we are Wednesday night. Again, we do have a special guest coming on, which will be fun. And then we'll be with you, like Matt said, not Christmas Eve night after the Broncos game, but soon after, like the next night. So probably the Monday night, and then either be Tuesday or Wednesday night that we'll go for our show that week. And of course, then I think, do they play on New Year's Eve?
Yes.
Yeah, they do. And so we talked about that already. We're going to go right after the show, so that's fine because they're on the road. They're in Buffalo anyway.
And we know everybody's got their got their New Year's Eve plans, so we want to get in and out with that show before everybody starts.
Nice and early. Exactly.
With that game, I think people are going to be starting the drinking early that day anyway.
I would say so, yeah, probably. Especially the way the Bills play. I'll tell you what, though, I'm rooting so hard for the 3 or 4 teams in front of the Bills. So hard. That's all I want. To have the Bills.
I think they're winning the AFC East. I think they win next week. I think they beat the Pats, and then they're going to go to Miami, and they're going to beat them to win the AFC East.
If Miami wins, but here's the thing: if Miami wins next week, they win. Miami's going to have to lose out in order for that to happen.
No, I don't think
they have 10 wins.
I think they have.
They have 10 wins.
I got to double check this. Well, you know what their next 2 games are?
And I mean, they have 2 tough games, but I'm just saying, in order for that to happen, Miami would have to lose out. You know what I mean?
Hold on, let me.
Miami has 10 wins and Buffalo has 8.
Yeah, no. Then all they have to do is lose one. Lose one in there because they lose when the Bills beat the Dolphins. Correct. Yeah, right. So as long as if the Bills win the next 2 games, which they're easier games for them, and the Dolphins lose to either the Cowboys or the Ravens, then
they have to. Then week 18 becomes a must-win.
Yeah, that becomes for the AFC East, and I suspect that would be the Sunday night game in Week 18 too, which would be a lot of fun. That'd be a really fun game to watch in a fun situation.
I know, but I want it to be the Sunday. Here's the thing for me. I want it to be the Sunday night game, and then I want the Bills to lose. It's all I want. It would be
that would be funny
glorious.
There's a situation there too where if the Bills win, they win the AFC East and they're the 3 seed. And if they lose, they miss the playoffs.
They miss the playoffs, right?
That is, and it's not that crazy to get them to that circumstance either, which I think would be that'd be a crazy one. Because the way they're playing, the way they played today, if they play like that every single day, I'd say they're the favorite to come out of the AFC.
Yeah, they can beat everyone.
We're
But,
going to get like a Bills-Niners Super Bowl.
But they haven't played like that all year long.
Yeah. We got Gregory Brown in the chat here. I'm going to highlight this because I love this guy. Pat should sign Justin Madubuike from the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
So in on this.
Give me all the Ravens defenders. All of them. I want all the Ravens defenders.
Make a defensive line out of just ex-Dolphins and Ravens guys, and 100%. I could be very happy with that.
Yep, 100%. By the way, Dakota asked about Mahomes. Mahomes played well today. One of the interceptions, again, was wrestled away from Blake Bell, hit him in the hands, and Mapu just stole it from him. And the other one was Kadarius Toney, just hit him in the hands, he dropped it, and Tavai picked it up. Yeah, which, by the way, Jelani Tavai with an all-time, like, what the hell were you doing when he tried to pitch it back? Thank God it went out of bounds. But
I love that. And you know what? I think that, too, that was the Patriots had a 4th and 3 in their own territory and decided to punt it instead of going for it. Then immediately got the pick. And it was like, the way the offense is played and the way the defense is played, the Patriots scored 17 points, 10 of them were off turnovers.
Right.
I think it's not that crazy of an argument to say the Patriots are more likely to set up a score when the defense is on the field than when the offense is on the field. So right. Most of the time I hate the strategy of punting and I want to be aggressive, but with this group,
listen, they asked Belichick about it after the game and he said, look, the offense isn't that good right now. They're not talented. I don't know. I didn't trust that we could get that 4th and 3, which is pretty telling to me. But like, I don't blame him. But then of course people are complaining about that. I'm like, dude, he's telling the truth. They're not that good right now on offense.
Nothing wrong.
Have you seen the offense? Like, it's just,
And I think that's one of the things that makes the conversation with Robert Kraft so interesting out of this. Because for a big part, not the entirety, but a big part of why the offense is as bad as it is because you've gotten bottom 3 quarterback play in the NFL all season long.
But again, it
some
comes
of that's
back
because
to,
Bill drafted the guys, but even guys who were good at this miss on quarterbacks. Like it happens. Look at the Niners. Everybody praises their team building, and they took a bigger swing than the Patriots. They had missed on a quarterback in the same draft, and they obviously got a little bit lucky and found ways around that. But guys who were good at this miss on the quarterback position. And 100%. That's okay. And I think if Bill were to go to Kraft and say, hey, you can see the team out there is competitive except for whoever we got back there. If you give me one more shot to get the guy back there and there's good guys in this draft, we're going to have a good team. I think that's a reasonably compelling.
You're not wrong. The difference is that San Fran's good everywhere else. They have unbelievable weapons. They drafted 2 really good wide receivers. They drafted a really good tight end. They drafted an awesome defense. Like they did all of those things.
They got a left tackle named Trent. They drafted a wide receiver from Arizona State in the 1st round, like
2nd round. But to me, that's one of those things for me that I just like. I'm looking at. Peace out, man. Thank you for coming. Thanks for coming through. But it becomes hard to justify when it's like we've made all these moves and none of them have worked out. None of them. Not one of them has worked out. Yes, you missed on the quarterback, but like
Pop
none of the other moves have worked out. Pop Douglas was fine. 6th round draft pick this year, but that's it.
Well, it's tough because you could argue offensively the 2 best guys they've taken in the last couple of years are Sidney So and Pop Douglas, who are the guys they just took this year. So if you're Bill Belichick, I feel like you could definitely go in there and say, hey, I nailed the 1st round pick until he got hurt for the year, and I drafted the 2 best offensive players I have in years, and we're in position to draft the franchise quarterback.
If your argument, let me tell you something. If your argument to Robert Kraft is that I drafted a 6th round wide receiver who's pretty good in the slot and a 4th round guy who I thought was going to play tackle but is playing guard for me, he's getting laughed out of the office. Like laughed.
Hey,
and you're not wrong, but he's getting laughed out of the office.
I mean, Julian Edelman. I'm not saying that Demario Douglas is that guy, but
listen, you're not wrong. All those things are true. But again, it's like you're right, but man, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can't make that argument,
And it's a weird spot too because you're trying to argue about the underlying processes here and what has worked. That's how the results in the field mean you get rid of Bill Belichick. If he wants to stay, he has to argue that the processes are sound and there's other reasons for why. But it's also tough because the process in 2021 was one thing, and it didn't really work. And it worked in some ways, but not in all of them. And then the process in 2022 was different and it didn't work. And now they've got a new process in 2023 that also hasn't worked, but for different reasons. And they've gotten some hits out of it. And,
Right.
You've had 3 different processes with 3 different offensive coordinators. And Matt Groh has come in this span. And then Bill O'Brien just got brought in. And you got the Kraft stepping in and asking them to make changes this year. And I think if you're Belichick and you say, hey, your goal was for me to fix this year, and I drafted a wide receiver that can play, and signed a wide receiver from the Super Bowl champs, and drafted a guard who has been a very strong player for us, which also fixed our tackle issue. And the problem was from the drafts before, which we both already agreed were an issue. Then he could say, hey, you got to let me see this process out if you're asking for me to change it. Because the other thing is, if Mac Jones was never going to be good. It didn't matter what Bill Belichick did in this draft. This team wasn't going to be good, and there was no way he was going to be here next year.
Right. Look,
and if Kraft says you're gone with all that, I think that's reasonable. But
all of those things are not necessarily false. But again, you're talking about, and Darth Gold says it, I think perfectly. The marginal draft gains can't make up for the huge upfront misses. They have whiffed over and 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 over for the last probably 10 years. They've whiffed. And that's, at some point, you just can't sit there and say, well, I drafted this guy and I did this and I drafted this guy. Well, if you wanted to fix the offense, number one, right away. Okay, you wanted to fix the offense? Great. You drafted defense the first 3 rounds. What the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
Now you're saying you wanted to fix the offense? You drafted all 3 defensive players. And again, I think Christian Gonzalez is a very good player, obviously. And I think Keon White shown that he can play, and that Marte Mapu will be able to play eventually. But you lose the credibility by saying things like that, right? And that again,
it's
tough. I drafted a wide receiver in the 6th round and he hit. Great. But are we really trusting that we're going to hit on a 6th-round wide receiver every year? It's just not. It's not feasible.
Yeah.
So those are the things for me that that's where I look at it and say, man, you just I don't know.
It's all fair too. I think that's what makes this difficult, or at least more complicated than in other situations. Because usually when a guy flames out, it's like, man, he didn't draft anybody good, and the team hates him, and he needs to go. And it's not quite that simple here. And the guy has a long enough track record of success that I think you can at least somewhat credibly make an argument that it's due more to bad luck and a couple bad apples than anything other than that. I don't know if I buy that, and I don't know if Kraft will buy that, but I don't think it's a crazy argument. I think it's a rational one. And it's going to be Kraft's call. We heard the Rappaport report that they're going to take their time with this, and that I feel like means one of 2 things. It either means they feel like the next guy would be Mayo, and they're not worried about him leaving, so they're going to have conversations internally and figure out if it's going to be Bill or Mayo next year. Or it means they're saying, hey, we don't know about this guy because they want somebody to trade for him.
Yeah. Nah, it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's tough. So, anyways, I'm going to leave you on one last thing. I'm going to leave you on one last thing. Everyone out there needs to remember that Ted Johnson accused Bill Belichick of forcing him to play with a concussion. So when you listen to him talk about Bill Belichick and about what the Patriots are doing, do not listen to one word that man says. Not one. Don't listen to one. Period. End of story. End of discussion. Don't listen to one word. Okay? So let's just leave it at that. I'm not going to even discuss what he said. I'm not going to discuss the comment. Doesn't matter.
I didn't even know he said something.
Word.
So
he just it's nonstop.
I'll look it up after.
It's constant. It's consistent. It just is what it is. And so don't listen to one word. That's the way it goes. But anyways, all right, let's get out of here. We'll be back Wednesday night again. Special guest, new guest, a new person on the scene, I think, and so I'm excited to have her on. So it'll be fun. But
probably Wednesday, Monday, Wednesday here. We're looking at is the schedule.
Wednesday, Monday, Wednesday. Yes, it seems that way.
For anybody who doesn't come on Wednesday, enjoy your Christmas.
Yes.
Enjoy any holidays you're celebrating this time of year, and enjoy your time with your family. And hopefully you can find a way to enjoy the Patriots Broncos game on Sunday night.
Let's hope so. It should be a fun game.
I
The
think
Broncos
it'll be
are
fun.
are
I don't know if it'll be
entertaining team, I think.
Fun and entertaining may not be the right words, but
Yeah.
close might be the way to describe this game.
There you go. See, look at that.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, thanks again, and we will talk to you on Wednesday night.